Okay, sir. A pleasant morning to one and all present here. On behalf of Kalaslingam Business School, CAT, I welcome you all 4th day of Faculty Development Program. I would like to thank first our VP sir, VC sir, and Registrar sir to organize the wonderful program for our teaching fraternity to enrich our knowledge. And it is a precious to welcome our eminent resource person, Dr. M. Selvakumar, Associate Professor and Head PG Department of Commerce, Ayanada Janayamal College, Sivagasi. Welcome you, sir. I wish to welcome Dr. G. Ravindran, Dean, Kalaslingam Business School. Welcome you, sir.
Okay.
I would like to welcome Dr. R. Vijay, Deputy Dean of Kalaslingam Business School, Head Department of Business Administration. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now I extend my welcome Dr. G. Ramesh Pandi, Head Department of Commerce. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
I wish to welcome Ms. P. Ramya, Head Department of Social Work. Welcome you, ma'am. And I wish to welcome, okay. I wish to welcome Dr. D. Vanitha, Coordinator of SHIP. And I am very happily invite all the participants of teaching fraternity and my dear colleagues today the wonderful sessions. Now I request Dr. G. Ravindran, Dean, Kalaslingam Business School, kindly give the inaugural address, sir.
Thank you, ma. Thank you so much, Professor Mahalakshmi.
Okay, sir.
Good morning, one and all. I feel very happy and have immense pleasure in that is organizing this wonderful seminar, that is rather FDP program, the 4th day FDP program. Now the session is going to be taxation in India. It's a wonderful, there is rather topic where in which most of us have there is a rather confusions or the problems or understanding the taxation. There is rather principles of taxation in India, the government of India. So those things can be easily, there is rather understood by a teacher who has got more experience and exposure over this taxation. So I, there is rather really feel very happy to have our Dr. Selvakumar, Professor, Associate Professor, there is and HOD of PG and Research Department of Commerce, Ayanada Janayamal College. He has got its experience in the taxation. I hope that he is going to within these 2 hours he is going to cover that is all the direct taxes. The indirect taxes, it may or may not be possible for him to. I do not know about his there is rather the presentation, but anyhow he'll be trying to give you clarity over this taxation in India, because everyone, we the participants, definitely we are coming under this there is rather there is the direct as the income tax. All of us hope that all of us are SSEs. So we have some, there is rather, we need some clarification. We need some, we are all commerce graduates. We may have, some other people may not be experienced with this or exposure with this taxation. If they take the help of auditors to file their returns, now you can take the help, you can take the, there is rather, you can get the clarity from whatever doubt you have got in the taxation, in the direct taxes with Dr. Selvakumar. Once again, I welcome Dr. Selvakumar for this wonderful session, and I just thank him for having accepted to be the resource person for this. That is a 4th day, that is rather FDP program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to welcome Dr. G. Ramesh Pandi, Head Department of Commerce, to introduce our guest.
Good morning to all. I'm very happy to introduce our today's resource person as well as my guide, Dr. M. Selvakumar, MCom, MBA, MPhil, SLET, PhD, and MA Economics. He is a associate professor and head of the Department of Postgraduate and the Research Department of Commerce, Ayanada Janayamal College, Sivagasi. He did his BCom and MCom at SRNM College, Satur, and he got first rank in both degrees. And he had also received a 5th university rank from Madurai Kamaraj University for MCom. He completed MBA at Indira Gandhi National Open University He qualified split examinations conducted by Bardiyar University in the year November 1999. He he completed his PhD from Madurai Kamaraj University, Madurai, in the year April 2008. Now he is pursuing MA Economics at Indira Gandhi National Open University. He published 9 books. He wrote 9 books. He published 204 articles in the national level, international level journals, including Scopus Index journals. He presented 112 papers in the national level, international level conferences were organized by various institutions. He delivered 11 guest lectures. He acted as a resource person for as well as chief guest for the seminars and conferences organized by various colleges. The number is 27. He organized 7 seminars and workshops at the national level and international level reach. He attended orientation and refreshment as well as a short-term course which were conducted by the UGC and other agencies. The number is 4. He is having the 19 years of teaching experience. He produced 11 PhDs and 5 candidates submitted their PhD and another 5 are pursuing PhD. He guided 29 MPhil projects. He is also guided for 40 MCOM projects, and he guided 33 diploma projects also. He received 2 projects from various funding agencies like University Grant Commissions. So I think he is the right person for this session. So with this, I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to introduce our resource person. Thank you, Anandal.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The sessions, the area covered, taxations in India. It's covered by our guest, Dr. M. Selvakumar, Associate Professor and Head in PG and Research of Department of Commerce, IN Nada Janayamal College. Your presence make a pleasant, sir. Now I hand over the session to our guest to lead the session, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Ravichandran sir, the Dean, the School of Business Studies, Kalasalingam Academy of Research, and the HODs of various departments under the School of Business, Vijay Madam, and Ramesh Pandian sir, and I think Vanida. Okay, and all faculty members of the great institution of the Kalasalingam University and all other institutions within the state and other states. Good morning to all. It is my immense pleasure to share something on the taxation in India. As it is in a faculty development program, I hope all of you are faculty of the commerce and management. As a faculty, we have some fundamental knowledge on the taxation and other related aspects in India. However, I hope this session makes you little better in your knowledge level, and I try to recap something in the domain of the taxation. First, we have to understand what is tax. The tax is a compulsory financial charge impact upon the taxpayer by a government in order to fund the government spendings. As you know that the government needs the funds to carry out the developmental activities. To funding that developmental activities, the government need funds. To generate funds, all the governments tax takes the tax as the important tool. Through this taxation, the government generate huge amount of the funds for their spending. In India, every year, the government generates it's approximately 24 lakhs crores every year through the and the characteristics of features of the taxation. From the definition itself, the meaning itself, we can understand what are all the characters the taxation has. The tax is a compulsory payment. Here there is no exemption to anybody. Okay, whether the citizens of India is a poor or rich, irrespective of their region and their community or whatever may be, here everybody should pay the tax. Therefore, it is a compulsory payment. And there is no direct quid pro quo between the taxpayer and the public authority. That means something for something. Here there is no something for something. As a taxpayer, we can't expect anything from the government. This is our responsibility to pay the tax to the government. For paying tax, we can't expect any privileges from the government. And it is levied on to meet the public expenditures. And the tax is payable regularly and periodically. Here we should pay the tax to the government regularly, okay, and periodically. Once in every financial year, here we have to pay the tax if it is related to the direct taxes. If it is an indirect tax, we have to pay the tax whenever we purchase or whenever we avail the goods and services. Okay, and it is a legal correction. Hello,
Yes.
my voice is audible, sir.
Yeah, very much. You can go
Okay, sir.
ahead.
Thank you. The tax is a legal correction. Now the government tax, the government has takes the taxation as a tool of giving the equality in the societies. Therefore, it may be taken as the legal correction. Then let us see on the objectives of the taxation. These are all the various objectives of that the taxation. That is raising revenue to the government, the equal distribution of the income among the people, among the societies. Through taxations, we collect the tax from the richer and spend the same thing to the poorest. And regulation, to regulate something in the society, here we take the taxation as the tool. And higher growth, for getting the higher growth in the society, in the country, in the economy, we have to do some infrastructural expenses. For making such infrastructural investment and expenses, the government need funds. Okay, for that funds, here the taxation is used. And pushing up the rate of savings and investments by making the taxation and giving the relaxation, here we motivate the people to save and investment. In the income tax, we have so many relaxation for investments and savings. And there are various types of taxes. The corporate taxes for the corporate sector and income taxes for all group of peoples, including individuals, partnership firm and the companies. And GST, it is major reforms in Indian taxation system. Okay, in the 2017 itself, all other value-added taxes are abolished and introduced the GST. That is a goods and service taxes. Okay, this is a tax on purchases of goods and availing of the services. And property tax, if you have a property, you have to pay the property tax to the municipality and the corporations. And stamp duties and registration charges. If you purchase the property or if you registered some agreements, you have to pay some tax that's called as a stamp duty and registration charges. Okay, and some other taxes are there. There is a professional taxes and some other local acti and entry fees are still there. Yeah, these are some important taxes in India. These types of taxes are usually split into three groups. If you impose any tax on the citizens of the particular country, that should be comes under any one of these three category. One is the flat taxes. Here everybody pays the same percentage. For example, in Russia, has a flat income tax, and everybody in Russia has to pay 13% of the income. But in India, we are not following the flat tax rate. Here we are following on the progressive taxes and regressive taxes. Okay, that comes in the next one. That is a progressive taxes is the more money a person makes, the higher percentage of their incomes they have to pay as a tax. If you earn more, then you have to pay more tax. In the income tax uh, act, here we follow that is the pay more uh, taxes on income. And the regressive taxes is the next category. Here the less money a person makes, the higher percentage of their income they have to pay. This is the regressive taxes. The all indirect taxes, that is a GST and Customs Act, comes under this category. Here, irrespective of the income, all people have to pay the same level of the taxes. If you pay the same level, irrespective of the income, that creates a huge burden to the poorest and a lesser burden to the rich people. That is, if you purchase a particular product, both rich and poor has to pay the same level of the tax. That is called as the regression taxes. The GST, this is one of the important drawbacks, okay, in India. Next, we are going to discuss in a little about the canon of taxation. This is the important concepts. Every country they should follow these taxation principles to make the taxation system in a better one. Okay, there is a canon of equity. There is a equality. Rich pay more and poor pay less. This is important concepts in the taxation system. But that principles is partly followed in the Indian taxation system. For direct taxes, we follow this principle. For the indirect taxes, we can't follow. Okay, some countries they follow that is that equality in both the sector of the taxations. And canon of the chaternity, there is the tax system is well aware of the purpose, amount, and manner to all the citizens of India. All the citizens of India, they should well about the purpose, amount, and the manner. Therefore, the country is imposing the tax system. First, create awareness on the taxation system and the percentages of the taxation among the people. And canon of the convenience, the time and the manner of the payment must be convenient for the taxpayer. That is very important uh, uh, principles in the taxations. And canon of the economy, collecting taxes is to generate the revenue. Okay, here every taxation system should compare the tax revenue and the tax expenses. Okay, for collecting the taxes, here we have to spend some expenses. That expenses should be very meager. Then only we can get the gain from the tax revenues. canon of the productivity, the fewer taxes which a larger revenues. Respective of there is a uh, respective of imposing a large number of taxes. Here we have to impose one or two taxes and generate the necessity money to the government. That is explained by the productivity. Only because of that principles, now we abolished all major indirect taxes and introduced the GST, that is the one tax, one nation scheme. The canon of the simplicity, the entire process should be simple, non-technical, and straightforward. The calculation methodology and procedure should be understandable and simple and carry out by all the people. Then canon of diversity, the collect tax from multiple sources. Okay, here depends on one sources. Here the country should depends on more sources. Okay, this is also one important canon. Then canon of elasticity, easily be adjusted, modifiable. The tax procedures and formality should be adjustable and modifiable. And canon of the flexibility, easily be increased or lowered. Okay, if we need a more income, that taxation system should be modified according to their need. That's what's called as the flexibility. Next, we are going to see something about the history of the taxation system. Okay, in the world we have a very longer history for the taxation. Before 2300 years back, that is 2300 BC onwards, we have the history on the taxation system. Okay, in Egypt, that is before 2300 BC. Okay, we find some taxation system. In India, we have some taxation principles and other related aspects even before. That is even before the Mughals. Okay, in the period of Chandragupta Maurya. Okay, if you see Arthashastra and Manu Shastra, we have a strong evidence to collect the taxes from the artisans in the 1/5 and from the agriculturists in the 1/6 or 1/7 and 1/8, depends on the situations. Okay, after the period of the British in India, okay, on 1860 by uh, James Wilson, okay, he introduced the direct taxation system, that is a income tax system, an account of the military mutiny of the first independence of India. Okay, and after that in 1980 the income tax was passed and again it was replaced by another new act which was passed in 1922. And in after independence in 1961 and 62, we have a very great deliberations among the income taxes, and the Income Tax Act 1961 was passed. Okay, and that act is applicable to all parts of the country, including the Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, and every year we passing that is the finance bill in the parliament, and they spells the income tax rates and other related procedures of the Income Tax Act 1961. Therefore, the tax is not a new one to the world and in India. It has a great history, a long back, a very long history. Okay, when the civilization is developed, uh, the development itself, the tax system is developed. And in India, the tax systems has two broad groups, that is direct taxes and indirect taxes. Okay, in direct taxes, we have some classifications. Okay, the income tax, wealth tax, gift tax, and capital gain tax. Out of these taxes, the wealth and gift taxes are abolished by the government of India in the recent past. Okay, and the other two acts are still in active. And in indirect tax regimes, we have there is a value added tax. Previously, we have value added tax. now that value-added tax is abolished and introduced the GST. The GST is also one of the type of the value-added tax, and the ACTRI and service tax. This is also abolished while introducing the indirect, that is a GST. Okay, and customs duty. Okay, this is regarding the import and exports of goods. Okay, therefore, in India, we have two group of the taxation system, that is the direct taxes and indirect taxes. In direct taxes, the government generates the maximum share from the income tax, and in the indirect taxes, the government generates the maximum share from the GST. What is the direct tax and how it is administered? Okay, these taxes are paid directly by the citizen to the government and cannot be remitted to others. Here, the direct taxes are paid by the citizen directly to the government. Here, the payment and burden is in the same hand. For the income tax, okay, here we pay the tax to the government directly from our pockets. We pay and the burden is also in our hands. That is called as the direct taxes. And these direct taxes are administered by Central Board of the Direct Taxes. Okay, it's the governing authority on all direct taxes. And the most of the common examples of direct taxes are already we seen the previous slide, that is income tax, property tax, personal property tax, and the professional taxes, and all these are direct taxes. And these taxes are based on the ability to pay the principals. Here the tax is calculated or computed on the basis of the ability to pay the principal, that's called as on the basis of the income or on the basis of that is a particular property or on the basis of the particular professional income. And what is the indirect tax? These taxes are collected by the producer and the retailer from the supply chain and is paid to the government. Okay, these taxes are generally levied on goods and services. The best example of the direct tax is GST. Okay, here we purchase the goods from the seller on certain price. The price itself includes the taxes. Therefore, the seller collect the tax along with the cost of the product from the purchaser and repay the same tax collected from the seller, collected from the purchaser to the government. Here, the producer or the retailer act as an intermediator. They just collect the tax from the ultimate buyer or the consumer and pay the same thing to the government. Okay, here nothing can be borne by the producer or the retailers. That is why here these tax are called as the indirect tax. Here actually the tax is paid by the ultimate buyer, but they won't pay that tax to the government directly, and indirectly they pay the tax to the government through the producer and the retailers. And these indirect taxes are administered by the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs. Okay. Here, the goods and service tax is the most common examples of the indirect tax. Still, in India, we have the Customs Act to regulate. Or if you export from the foreign country, you have to pay the tax. That tax is called as the customs duty. And in economic point of view, the tax creates the two effect in the economic system of the particular region. That is income effect and the substitution effect. The income effect is nothing but reducing the purchasing power of the taxpayer and its implication on the purchase. If you impose the tax, if you impose the tax on the that is the citizens of the country, their income is reduced. If the income is reduced, then automatically is reduced the purchasing power. If the reduced purchase power, definitely reduce our purchases. Therefore, it creates a close association between the demand and the purchasing power of the taxpayer. Therefore, if you impose more taxes, that reduces the demand. That reduces the demand and affects the total economy of the country likewise. And the substitution effect, this is also one of the important effect that creates that is a makes the taxpayer to shift their product from a higher price to lower price, because if you charge the tax on the particular product that leads to the higher price of the product, then automatically then the consumer they shift their choice from the higher priced goods to lower priced goods. Okay, therefore, the two important effects of the tax have a greater implication on the economic system also. Here in India, we have the so many taxes comes under two broad category, that is direct taxes and indirect taxes. All these taxes are administered by the governments. The Indian government structures have three major participants. One is central government, state government, and the union territories. The union territories are at par with the states. Therefore, here we take the two important participants, the state and the central government. These taxes are administered and shared by these central and the state governments. Okay, here the major central taxes are the income tax, the central goods and service taxes, customs duty, and integrated goods and service tax. Here, for your better understanding, the GST, under the GST, we have three category of the taxes. One is CGST, SGST, and IGST. Okay. The GGST and IGST are levied and administered by the central government, and SGST is administered by the respective states and the union territory. Okay, therefore, the state government have two important tax administrations. One is state goods and service taxes, that is SGST, and that is a stamp duty and registration for the transfer of property and other things. And apart from these two major participants, the local taxes are there. These taxes are levied by the municipalities and the corporations. Some of the examples of that, these taxations are the property tax, okay, levied by municipality for on our property, the value of our property, then water tax and the professional tax. These are all levied and collected by the local bodies, that is panchayat and municipality and the corporations. This is the major administrative setups of the Indian taxation system. And next, come to the two major classifications. Okay, in the direct taxes system, here we have the major component, that is income tax. Okay, in India, the income of the particular assessee is assessed by 5 major headings. Okay, whoever may be as an assessee, whether as an individual or a Hindu undivided family or a partnership or association of persons or a company or government organizations, whatever may be the type of the assessee. For every assessee, here first we compute the income for the particular assessment year or the particular previous year, that is called as the financial year. Now we are in the assessment year of the 2020 and 21. in this assessment year, we assess the income of the particular assessee in the previous year 2019 and 20. Therefore, we usually find the tax on the income of the assessee in the financial year, that is called as in the previous year. Okay, here for the income tax purposes, here we compute the income of the assessee under 5 broad category. That is the income from salary, income from house property, and income from profits and gains of business or profession, and income from capital gains and income from other sources. Okay, here I give a brief introduction on each of these subjects of the income of the assessees. The first, the income from salary. Here, the salary income is the income generated through the salary. Okay, if you are an employee in a particular organizations or the company, for entering your service to the owner, you receive a salary income, whatever may be called as a salary or remunerations or whatever may be. For that salary and the income, here you have to pay the tax. Therefore, the income from salary is computed by the predetermined manner. Here, this class essentially assimilates any remunerations which is received by an individual on terms of the services provided by him based on the contract of employment. Okay, here the two important things we have to consider. One is the assessee should be the individual, okay, and the individual earns something by way of the remuneration on terms of the services, okay, provided by him based on the contract of the employment. If there is no employment, there is no question of the income from salary. The income from salary. The salary received by the member of the parliament or the member of the assembly here is not considered as a salary. However, it is called as a salary. Here it is not a salary as per the income tax rules and regulations, because here there is no contract between that is the employer and employee relationship. There is no relationship between the government and the member as the employer and the employee. If there is no employer and employee, that income is not considered as a income of salary, and it is considered as a income of or income from other sources. Okay. And the second point clearly spells that employer-employee relationship, and it should include the basic wages, salary, advance salary, pension, commission, gratuity, perquisites, as well as the annual bonus, and everything is included in the salary income. Okay, I think a detailed explanations on the income from salary and the computation methodology is not necessary. Okay, therefore, this is enough regarding the income from salary. For each and everything here, we have a detailed regulations and procedures. Okay, income from salary is basically classified into perquisites and that is allowances, perquisites and allowances, and retirement benefits. Okay, all these are computed as per the norms and procedures spelled in the Income Tax Act 1961. After computing the income from salary, okay, then we have to go for the next income, that is the income for house property. That is the income from house property. This is according to Income Tax Act 1961, section 22 to 27 is dedicated to the provisions for the income tax computations of the total standard income of the persons from house property or land that he or she owns. If you have a house property, then you have to compute the income from that house property, whether it is owned, utilized for yourself or for the rented. If it is utilized for your own occupation, that it is called as a self-occupied house property. For mere self-occupied house property itself, you have to compute income from house property. Okay, therefore, nothing can be and through the income from house property. And that situations also you have to compute the income from house property. The income from house property may be in the negative value. Okay, that negative value that is called as the loss from house property may be adjusted with the other heads of the income. Okay, that is a if you purchase the house under the loan, there is a the loan repayment and the interest are taken into account while computing the income from house property, and that leads to the loss from house property. That loss from house property may be adjusted with the other heads of the income. There is a provision spelled in the income from house property. And interesting aspects is that the charge is derived out of the property or land and not on the amount of the rent received. That is what I explained now. Okay, the aspect is charge is derived out of the property or the land and not on the amount of the rent received. It is not necessary to receive the rent for the computations of the income from house property. If you have a house, if you own a house, then you have to compute the income from house property. However, if the property is utilized for letting out the normal course of the business, then the income from rent will be considered. Okay, if you let out the house, if you let out the house for the residential purposes, then the income generated by way of receiving the rent is included in the income from house property. If you utilize your own house for your residential own occupation, then it is deemed to be that is occupied for own purposes, and there is no income is generated through that house. And that situations you can show your annual value for your house as a nil. And one important aspects of the income from house property is that is if you utilize your own house property for your own business. Here, the house property is not at all mean that the property used as a house. Here, the house property means a property. House property means a property that may be used even for the business purposes or rented for the business purposes. However, it is used for the business purposes. This is also called as the house property. Okay, coming to the point, if your own property is utilized for your own business, then that income from house property is computed under the head income from business and not in income from house property. Therefore, the only two things, let out house property and self-occupied house property are comes under the category of income from house property. And go to next one, that is the income from business or that is a professionals. I think we are know the meaning of the business and the professionals. Okay, if you make a profit by buying and selling of the commodities or offering the services, okay, that is called as that is a income from business. If you utilized your own skills to earn something, that is called as the professions. There is a the income from business of the income from the income from profits of the business are professional professions is computed under head the income from profits of the business. Okay, here we have to compute the income as per the norms of the income tax rules and regulations. The profit shown in the profit and loss account here is not at all taken as a income from business. Here the accounting procedures and the formalities differ from the income tax formalities. Here we have to compute the income from business according to the income tax procedures. Okay. Therefore, here we have to make adjustments on the profit shown in the profit and loss account as per the norms spelled in the Income Tax Act. Okay. The income tax computations of the total income will be attributed from the income earned from the profits of business and professions. The difference between the expenses and revenue earned will be chargeable. Here, I think you understand that the difference between expenses and revenue. Here, a clear-cut definition is there in the Income Tax Act. What are all the admissible expenses? What are all the non-admissible expenses? What are all the business revenues and what are all the non-business revenues? Okay, here the admissible expenses and business revenues are taken into account and find the difference. That difference here is called as the income from business. Okay, here is a list of the income chargeable under this head. There is some of the few important heads. The profits earned by the assessee during the assessment year through conducting the business. Profits on income by an organization. Profits on sale of certain licenses. Cash received by an individual on export under government schemes. Profit, salary or bonus received as a result of a partnership in a firm. Benefits received in the firm, in the business. Benefits received in the business. These are all some examples of the income from profits of the business. There are a wide list of formalities, the computations of the income from business, and different taxing procedures are there for individual, the assessment of individual uh, HEF or companies are there. Next, we are going to the computation of the capital gain. Okay, this is the next head of the income. Okay, this is a income generated through transfer of the property or sale of the profit. Or profits or gains earned by an assessee by selling or transferring a capital assets. Okay, if you earn something by transferring your assets to somebody else, that profits here is called as the income from capital gains. The entire proceedings of the sale of assets here is not taken as a income. The difference between the difference between the sale value and the indexed cost of the acquisition here is called as the income from capital gain. Okay, where there are the two group of the capital gains. One is short-term capital gain and another one is the long-term capital gain. Okay, if you transfer the assets, within the 1 year from the date of purchase, then it is called as the short-term capital gain. Okay, the short-term capital gain, there is no need of the indexation of the acquisition of cost because the period is very short. Therefore, you directly find the difference between the sale value and the purchase price of the assets, and the difference will be taken as the short-term capital gain. If the assets are sold after a very long period, that is more than 3 years, I think. If you sell the assets after holding that assets more than 3 years, then that capital gain here is called as long-term capital gain. In that situations of the long-term capital gain, here we have to compute that is indexed cost of acquisition. Take an example, 20 years back, if you purchase a particular land for 1 lakh rupee, now it's worth a crore. Okay, therefore, the prices or the value of the assets at present cannot be compared with the value of the assets before 20 years. Therefore, here the indexation should be important. Therefore, by making indexations, we convert the value of that property before 20 years to the present value. Okay, that is called as the indexation. For that purpose, there is the income tax acts, the finance bills gives some index value. Applying that index values, we convert that purchase price as an indexed acquisition, the value of acquisition, and compare the indexed acquisition value with the sale value. The difference here is called as the long-term capital gain. The short-term, both short-term and long-term are taxed under the Income Tax Act 1961. Next, we are going to discuss on the income from other sources. This is a residual head. Okay, last heads of the income. If any income is not coming under the category of any of the previous four, that is the income from salary, income from house property, income from capital gains, and income from business and the profession, that comes under this category that is called as income from other sources. That is why this is called as residual. This is a residual. Okay. Some of the examples of the income from other sources are there is the dividend received, interest received, royalty received, okay, remuneration not in the sense of the salary, okay, interest from deposits, lottery awards, card games, gamblings, and sports awards are included in this category. These incomes are attributed in the section 56(2) of the Income Tax Act and are chargeable for income tax. This is the last head. Okay, after computing the 5 heads of the income, then you have to make the total income of the particular assessee. Okay, by uh, sum up all these heads of the income, then we can get the gross total income. And from the gross total income, we deduct some deductions. Okay, the government have so many deductions from various sections. After deducting the deductions, then we can get the net total income. That is the net income from salary. The net income from salary, here we have some deductions. After that, that is called as the taxable income. Then the taxable income here is taken as the income under the Income Tax Act, on which the recommended income tax rates are applied and find the what is the value of the income tax on the particular assessee. The next we are going to discuss on the key tax initiatives in India. Some of the major initiatives taken by the government of India to give the equality in the Indian societies and to develop the business and other research related aspects. Okay, here the special economic zones. Okay, the operations before 1st April 2020. Here we have incentives to special economic zones. There is deductions of 100% of profits and gains derived from the export businesses for first 5 years of the commencement. Okay, and 50% of the profit and gains derived from the export business for the next 5 years. Okay, and 50% of back profits and gains from the export business for the next 5 years. Therefore, for the first 15 years, they have some initiatives to the businesses in special economic zones to uh, uh, motivate the business houses to export their products. And for the research and development, the companies in respect of any expenditures on research and development in an approved in-house facility. In the heads of income from business and the profession, there are so many heads, so many deductions, exemptions are there for making research and development. If the business houses spend their profit for doing researches, they have weighted tax deductions of 200%. And well, exemptions are announced in the finance bill. And next initiatives is related to the investments linked to motivate the people to invest their money, to save their money and to invest in certain sector. The government gives some exemptions. Okay, any capital expenses incurred for specified businesses is allowed as a deductions in the year in which it is incurred. If you purchase a house or if you invested money in your business, you can get some deductions in the heads income from business or profession. And Startup in India scheme, here we have some incentives for Startup India scheme. Okay, the tax incentives granted to eligible startups, the tax holidays for consecutive 3 years from initial 5 years in respect of 100% of their profits, including fast tracking of patent applications with the 80% rebate. Okay, startup, if you have a startup, you avail the 3 years tax holidays from the first 5 years. Okay, for these 3 years, you won't pay any tax to the government for your income. And next is for the international financial services sector. The tax concessions on capital gains, the minimum alternative tax, and dividend distribution tax. These taxes are available to the corporate sectors to avail that financial services. Okay, cater to customers outside the jurisdictions of the domestic economy. Such centers deals with the flow of finance, financial products and services across the borders. There is a player outside the country. And this shows there is the income tax slabs. Okay, if you find the taxable income of the assessee, then you can apply the applicable tax rates on the income and find the tax payable by the particular assessee. Here we have the three category of the citizen. One is a general public, the senior citizens, and there is a very senior citizens. The citizens below the age of 60 years are called as the general public, and 60 to 70 years of age are senior citizens. Above 70 years of age are called as very senior citizens. Okay. Generally, the income tax slabs are spelled in the finance bills of the every year budget. Okay, this year the government submitted its budgets in the parliament in the month of February. Okay, in that finance bill, these slabs are spelled in. Okay, according to that by the financial bill, the slab rates of income tax for the general public is up to 2.5 lakhs, there is no tax. 2.5 lakhs to 5 lakhs, 5%. 5 to 7.5 lakhs, 10%. 7.5 to 10 lakhs is 15%, and 10 to 12.5 lakhs is 20%, and 12.5% to 15 lakhs is 25 lakhs, and above 15 lakhs is 30%. Okay, and surcharge is also there. If your income is less than 50 lakh, there is no surcharge. 50 lakh to 1 crore, 10%, and 1 crore to 2 crores. If your taxable income is 1 crore to 2 crore, there is 15%, and 2 crore to 5 crore, 25%, and 37% for more than 5 crore. Okay, and we are also having on the health and education chess 4% of the income tax, and a tax rebate of 12,500 for income up to 5 lakhs. Income up to 5 lakhs. And most tax exemptions and deductions like ATC, HRA, LTA, home loan interest, etc. are not allowed. Okay. Then this, I think this explains clearly about the income tax slabs in India. Okay, I hope this explanation is enough for your recap regarding the income tax. Next, we are going to see there is the indirect taxes, that is the goods and service taxes. I think you know that this is a greatest economic reforms in India. There is a taxation reforms in India. Over the past 20 years, we was discussing on the GST. In the period of Manmohan Singh, 1991, that is our honorable former Prime Minister of India. In 1991, he was the Finance Minister of India under the headship of respected Narasimha Rao. Okay, during that period, he entered into that, and there is a LPG, liberalization, globalization, and the free academic zones. We entered all these things. Okay, now we are enjoying the benefits of the LPG. Okay, however, we have so many discretions on the benefits of the LPG. Okay, that's on that period itself. There is a great debate on the GST over the 20 years. We were discussing, and now it is implemented uh, in the year 2017. Okay, in the year 2017, the main purpose of implementing that GST is abolishing all taxes in the category of indirect taxes and eliminating the cascading effect of the taxes. That is a very important thing. The two important things: the tax on one tax, one nation, and the cascading effect. That is a tax on already paid tax. That should be avoided. That should be avoided. For the two purposes, the goods and service taxes are introduced in India. However, still some products are exempted, excluded from the GST. Say, example, petroleum products are excluded, and alcoholic and liquor products are excluded. They are under even under excise and there is a salt tax schemes. This shows the taxes replaced under GST. Okay, we already discussed that there are the two group of taxes. There is a taxes levied and administered by the state governments and the central governments. Here previously we have there is a VAT or salt taxes, entertainment taxes, luxury taxes, taxes on lottery, betting, gambling, actrai, purchase tax. All these taxes are now all are under the state government jurisdiction. All these taxes are now abolished and introduced the GST. And in case of the central government taxes, there is a central excise duty, additional excise duty, additional customs duty, special additional duty of the customs and service tax, and excise duty levied under medical and toiletries preparations. All these are abolished, but customs duty is there, and additional customs duty and special additional customs duties are abolished by the GST. Therefore, more than 10 taxes are abolished by the government by introducing the GST in India. And let us see there is the objectives of the GST. Here we spelled some important objectives. Okay, there is a ensure one country, one tax and consumption based tax. Previously, we have the tax system of manufacturing based system, manufacturing based taxes. The excise duty is on manufacturing or offering the services. Now there is a consumption based tax. Okay, if you sold, if you sell the particular product, then only we have to pay the tax. Previously, if you manufacture a particular product, you have to pay the tax. Now that system is converted as a consumption based tax from the manufacturing based tax. Ensure uniform GST registration. Previously, every state they have their own formalities and tax rates. In India, we have so many states, and every state follows their own system. Therefore, and the uniformity is absence in the tax system that leads to different prices in of a particular product, the same product in a different states. Okay, now that different prices are minimized by implementing the GST. Elimination the cascading effect of the indirect taxes on single transactions. Previously, we have the different stages of the taxes, and that every stages we have to pay the tax to the government. Okay, say example, your product have a different stages, and every stage you have a market value, and at the production of our completions of the every stage itself, we have to pay the tax. Therefore, after completing the first stage, you have to pay the tax to the government, and that product is transferred to the second stage. At the completion of the second stage itself, we have to pay the tax. Yeah, the one thing is, in the second stage, we have to pay the tax for the cost as well as the tax paid to the government at the first stage itself. That is called as the cascading effect. Okay, here the GST is paid at the single point of time, at the point of consumption. Okay, therefore there is no question of the tax on tax. Okay, this is the main important concepts introduced in GST. Okay, not present in the earlier tax systems, and ensure the submission of all indirect taxes at the center and the state levels. Okay, the uniform pattern of tax systems. Reduce the tax evasion and corruptions. Here we have a strong systems and softwares. By applying that systems and softwares, the government takes so many steps to avoid tax evasion and corruptions. The productivity, which leads to the productivity. Okay, increase the taxes to GDP ratio, which increases the tax rates. Okay, and increase compliances and adaptability is increased. Reduce economic distortions. Paying more taxes creates some hurdle to the economic systems. Okay, now we have only one tax system that avoids that restrictions. And the benefits of GST. Okay, eliminating. I clearly explains the meaning of the GST. That explanation shows some benefits. That is eliminations of cascading effect of taxes. That is a tax on taxes are eliminated. Seamless flow of input tax credit. Okay, here if you purchase the product for producing some other product, then you can avail the input tax credit. There is nothing but there is a what you paid as a tax in your purchases taken as a tax credit in your tax payable on output. That is what called as the input tax credit. Okay, and common market GST will effectively dissolve the state boundaries. Previously, here we have the different tax structures between the states. Okay, if you sell the product to the seller, to the purchaser in Maharashtra, you have to fix some price. If you sell the same product to Gujarat, you have to fix the different price because the tax rates are different. But now the common market is there by implementing the GST. Here all tax rates are same. Okay, whatever may be within the state or intra-state, here we have to apply the uniform tax rates. Better days for underdeveloped states. Uh, the previous tax system is more beneficial to the developed states. Say example, the states like Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and Maharashtra, and they are manufacturing based states. Okay, there is the previous excise duty is based on the manufacturing. If the manufacturer is over, if you produce a particular product, you have to pay the excise duty. Now it is converted as a consumption-based tax. In consumption-based tax, the tax is levied when you consume the particular product, when you sell the particular product. Okay, the point at which the consumption takes place, where the tax is levied. Therefore, there is the states like Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, they benefited more under GST. Previously, they are disadvantaged. Now that states are privileged due to this new regime of the GST. That is why the government of India and Maharashtra and Gujarat opposing the GST the earlier stages, and the central government compromising all these states by giving more share from the central government taxes. and technology lead law. Okay, the GST has designed in such a manner that compliance with now becomes largely based on technology. Here everything is online now. Okay, here you have to submit your return online, and whatever may be the return submitted, the GST is only through online. Okay, here you should get the e-way bill for transferring the goods from one place to another place. That should be in online. That is called as it is a e-way. Therefore, here everything should be online and technology based. By applying that technology here, we can trying to reduce that is the tax evasion and some type of the frauds. And this is what called as the Indian GST model. There are so many models followed by the different countries. In India, we followed the dual GST model. Okay, single GST model, dual GST model, and triple GST model are there. But in India, we followed dual GST model where that GST is administered by union and the state governments. Okay, the transactions made within the single state levied with central GST by the central government and state GST by the state governments. If you sell the product within the state, that means both buyer and seller are in the same state, then we have to levy the two tax. One is CGST and SGST. If you see the bill for your purchases, you say that you see that the two type of taxes, that is CGST or SGST, 9%, 9% or 4%, 4%. Okay, or 12%, 12%. Okay, therefore, within the state, here we have the two taxes, that is a central GST and the state GST. For interstate transactions and the imported goods and services and integrated GST, that is IGST, is levied by the central government. Okay, if you make a sale with other states, say example, if you sell a buyer in Maharashtra, then he has to pay only one tax, that is IGST, that is levied by the central government. Okay, and GST is a consumption based and destination based. This is what I already explained earlier. Okay, manufacturing based is converted as a consumption based, and it is a destination based. Where the goods are consumed, there the tax is levied, and not at the place of manufacture. Okay, if I have a manufacturing place at Tamil Nadu and sell the same and sell the same to Maharashtra, then the Maharashtra government receives the taxes. Receives the taxes. That is the seller in Maharashtra pay the tax to the government in Maharashtra. For this type of sales, there is the inter sales. For this IGST is applicable. This is the difference between the different types of GST taxes. Here we have the three, there is a four types of taxes. There is a CGST, that is intra-state, within the state. It's applicable to within the state. SGST, it's also applicable to within the state. CGST is controlled and levied by the central government. SGST is levied and controlled by the state government. Both the taxes are levied in intra-state, within the state. And the IGST is controlled by the state government. This tax is for within the state. Not there is an interstate. And UGST or UTGST, that is called, this is the taxes for the union government. This slide shows the tax revenue in India, okay, for the year 2018 and 19. The 18 and 19 is the actual receipts, and in the year 19 and 20 is revised estimates, and 20 and 21 it's for budgeted estimates. Here we followed this type of the systems. In 20 and 21, we submit the statements, financial status of 2018 and 19. This is what the actual. Okay, For 19 and 20, we revised, and next year we submit the breakups of the tax revenue or the tax collected for the year 2019 and 20. So in the year 2018 and 90, he received the total gross tax revenue is 20 lakh 80,465 crores, out of which the corporation tax is that is what 66 lakh 63,000, and the taxes on income tax is 4 lakh 73,000, 4 lakh 73,000, and the wealth tax, customs, and union excise duties, and the service taxes, and the goods and service tax is around 5 lakh 81,000, 5 lakh 81,000, and the taxes on union territories and NCD transfers and state shares. Okay, this is what totally 7 lakh 61,454. Okay, the total tax revenue is 20 lakh 80,000. Okay, out of which the central government wants to pay share to the respective state governments. After sharing the tax income to the state governments, the central government have a net tax revenue of 13 lakh 17,211 crores rupees in the year 18 and 19. And the revised budget in the year 2019-20 is it is about 15 lakh 4,587. This is the revised budget. The actual will be published in the next year. Okay, and this year we expected the tax revenue is 16 lakh 35,909 crores. This is a budgeted estimations. Next year we revise this estimation, and in the year 2022-23 we know we will know the actual tax receipts for the year 2020 and 21. Okay, anyhow, we have almost the 90% of the revenue of the revised estimation will be collected as actual. Okay, this shows that how the India is economically strong in the world. Almost here we have the 13 lakhs, that is the 16 lakhs income generated country. Apart from tax revenues, we also have some other revenues. Okay, here I only focused on the tax revenues, that's all. Here we have 24 lakhs, around 24 lakhs of crores in the Indian government generated the gross tax revenues. Out of which 6 lakhs 90,000 is through, that is the goods and service taxes. I think, I hope I make you better feel after this wonderful session. Okay, if you have a query, you just send your queries through chat box, I think. Okay, I am eager to answer your queries. Thank you for opportunities and for your patient listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
your-
Selvakumar. Very nice.
Sir,
Very
thank
nice.
you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
It has reached all the levels. Those who do not have even the base knowledge on taxation, by this time they would have understand what is what, the direct
Yes,
as
right.
well as indirect taxes, GST.
Actually,
Really,
actually, we are all faculty members. Therefore, the computation technology dealings are spelling the computation methodology is not necessary. Everybody will know that. That is why
not only that,
I
even people,
yes, yes,
those who do not handle papers, they
yes,
need
yes,
to
yes.
have this base.
Yes,
After
yes,
that,
yes,
if
sir.
they
Yes.
know, now they'll be interested in taking classes for the tax. Some of the
Definitely, sir.
people which
Definitely.
are there, they hesitate to take tax
Definitely,
subjects.
sir. Definitely.
Now
Yes, sir.
they
Yes,
would
sir.
have understand, they would have got there is the exposure, the knowledge on this, the basic knowledge about the tax, and now they can start working on this. They can take
Yes,
up,
sir.
they'll
Yes.
be interested in taking up this. Really, it's
Yes,
a
sir.
wonderful session. Wonderful session, and you have given a very detailed explanation that is related to this, both the direct and indirect taxes. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation, sir. Professor Satish Kumar raised one question, sir, in the chat box. Dr. Selvakumar, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Professor Satish Kumar is one of the participants. Raised one
Ah.
question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can the state government alone collect the
Ah.
tax and utilize that for state development? Why they segregate the GST as SGST and CGST? What is the reason behind it, sir?
Oh.
I think this is a GST model.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In GST model here we have the three taxes. One is that is a CGST, SGST, and IGST. Okay, here I think the question
He is
is regard
asking,
with
sir,
why we have, yes, why we have the two tax system, that is CGST and SGST.
yeah. Yes, sir. What is the reason
Yes, yes,
behind
yes.
it? Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yes, generally the central government they feel that uh, they want to have a hold on the income of the particular country. Okay, if the entire control is given to the state governments, then automatically the control is went to the state government. Then nothing can do by the central government. Therefore, major developmental activities are taken by the government of India itself. Okay, for example, the four-way roads or Indian railways are creating the infrastructures or whatever may be carried out by the central government alone. Okay, therefore, portions of the tax revenues should be go to the central government itself. That is why here the tax system is formulated under the dual tax system. Okay, that is called as central government and state governments. Okay, in some countries they follow the single tax model where the central government collects the entire taxes and give the shares to the state government. Okay, therefore the state government is under the control of the central government. Therefore the taxes are CGST and SGST, CGST and XGST. If you purchase a product, if you purchase the product from your state, then you have to pay the two taxes. One is for the central government and another one is for the state government. Okay, I think that is for 18%. The 50% is goes to the central government and 50% goes to the state government. The purpose is giving a scope to both the governments to spend for the public.
Okay, sir. I think he may be satisfied. He raised another
And
one more question, sir.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On what basis the slope rate of income tax and salary is fixed by the government? Whether the
Slope or slow?
slope SLOP, sir. Slope rate of
Slope.
yeah, slope rate for income tax and salary is fixed by the government. Whether the standard deduction under section 16 subsection 1A is benefitable to the salaried people.
Yes.
Okay.
Here the purpose is applying the progressive tax model. Okay, there is the financial analyst and the economist, they always suggest the progressive tax model, where the progressive tax model, the more tax on, the more income group income group people, less tax on, the less income group people. Okay, if you apply the fixed percent of taxes to all group of people, then that is called as the regressive tax model, where the people earning lower income and the people earning more income has to pay that same tax level. For say example, if you earn 5 lakh rupees or if you earn 5 crore rupees, both the group of people they have to pay the fixed rate of percentage of taxes in the regressive tax model. Okay, in the progressive, here lesser burden to low income group of people, higher burden to higher income group of people. That is what suggested by the economist for economic equalities. For economic equalities, here we are not considering the percentage or the amount. Here the real burden should be taken into account. If your income is 5 lakh, from you have to pay the 10%, that is called as that is 50,000 rupees as a tax. your burden is definitely more than the burden taken by the people who earn 5 crores, 5 crore rupees as a income, where he pay the 30%, where he pay the where he pays the 30% tax rate on the 5 crore. It is around approximately, even the slope rate is there, approximately he pay the 1.5 crores as a tax. After paying the 1.5 crores, he has the money after tax money is 3.5 crores as his income, but here you only have 4.5 lakhs as your income. Therefore, the government implementing the slope rate of taxes, the slope rate of taxes to the uh, uh, people or citizens under the income tax slab rate. And I think the next question is related to the standard deductions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Is
The
it
standard deduction
deductible?
is
Yeah.
yes, the standard deduction is given to the salaried people. Okay, there are so many discussions on regarding the standard deductions. Okay, the standard deduction is given to the salaried people only because of they are not escaping from the tax regime. Okay,
Oh.
because that people cannot avoid that taxes because all these are recorded. All these are recorded. Okay, therefore, the government gives some benefits to the salaried group of people and introduced the standard deduction to such a group of people. And in India, most of the peoples are having the salary which is below than 5 lakhs. Okay. I think there's more than 60% of the people receiving a salary is less than 5 lakhs. Okay, that the government wants to give some privileges to that group of people. So that is why the government of India introduced the standard deductions to the salaried people.
Okay, so another question raised by Professor Jayanti, sir.
Yes, yes.
Is GST affecting people or not? Hello, sir.
Please repeat the question.
Is GST
Ah,
affecting the people or not?
is GST is affecting the people or not?
Introduction of GST, whether it is beneficial to the consumer
Yes,
or
sir.
not, we ask for.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Definitely,
sir. Yes, sir.
yes, yes, yes. Definitely, the GST is beneficial to the people. Previously, here we have pay more taxes. We have pay more taxes in every stages. Say example, in
Tax.
a supply chain, system, we have so many intermediaries. Okay, in value-added taxes, there is excise and customs duties are there, where every intermediator have pay the taxes, and ultimately all the taxes are in the hands of the consumers or the last purchasers. Okay, and even however there is a scope for the input tax credit, so many middlemen are not availing the input tax credit. Okay, therefore, the prices on the central excise and the salt tax systems are definitely more than the prices under the GST. And in the initial stage itself, we face so many difficulties with customers, with the consumers, and with the sellers. But during the over the long period, definitely we receive more benefits. Here we can't avoid the taxes by the seller. Okay, in the that is a excise duty system in the previous tax system, there is no conformity with the payment of taxes by the seller to the government. Now here there is so many checkups by so many hurdles in the technology based environment by the government of India to the seller in the payment of taxes to the government. Here there are so many procedures where here you have to submit your own tax returns, GST returns within fifth, I think within the 10th day of every month. And in the 15th day, the government consigning your purchasing and selling. Government purchasing, you are purchasing and selling, and consigning the purchasing and selling. And if there is any queries, that return is again sent to the seller. the seller wants to, the sellers were in the positions are in the positions to clarify that queries. Okay, then only the seller have to pay, allowed to pay the taxes and the GST portal. Okay, therefore so many systems are there, okay, to there is a speed up or to ensure the regularity in the payment of the taxes. If we follow that systems, follow that system in a stringent manner, in future definitely we have the government receives so many rupees as a tax revenues, and that situation the government reduces the tax rates. And now it is that is 18% or 24% like that. Okay, that may be reduced in future. Therefore, the GST is absolutely beneficial to the consumer as well as the seller.
Okay, sir. Vijay ma'am? Vijay ma'am, please unmute your mic. Please ask your question, ma'am. Vijay ma'am?
Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you. I had a question for sir.
Yes, ma'am.
There was a news on special tax for COVID, actually.
Special tax on?
COVID, after COVID, for the problem what the government is facing. They've said that the tax level, after a particular salary level, there would be a special percentage levied for this. So what is the impact, and comment on yours on this? And another question what I had is, what is the impact of availing home loan in the current scenario? Will it change? Will it be the same? Advisable, not advisable? Thank you, sir.
Okay. The answer for the first question is COVID-19 taxes. As a government, it have its own powers to whatever may be the tax. Okay, and we know that now where we stand. Okay, the governments they loses their entire revenue. Okay, there is no income to the government. Okay, therefore to face these critical situations, the government needs so many. There is the government needs so much of funds to cope up with the current situations, and they are in a position to spend more money for there is a medical and other COVID controlling measures. Therefore, the government imposing such taxes, I think the taxes are not much more, and the taxes are levied on some important aspects only. I think it is copable and it is a temporary one. Okay, after correcting everything, I think the government withdraw that taxes. Okay, and particularly there is the government cuts so many expenses regarding the salary to the government employees and other government related activities. Therefore, the government takes all efforts to managing these current situations. I think the COVID-19 tax is a temporary one. Okay, after making everything is correct, then the government withdraw the same situations, and it is not making much impact on the income of the people, I think. Okay, and the second question is interest on home loan. Interest on the home loan, the moratorium of the home loan. Now the government of India announces postponing the payment of the principal and the interest for the home loan for the 3 months. Now it is discussing to extend the same thing to the next 3 months. And most of the private concerns now they pay the lesser salary to the employees in the private sectors. Okay, especially in the manufacturing sector and service oriented sectors, they face difficulties to pay the salary to the employees. Okay, to cope up that situations, they reduces the salary to the employees. Therefore, in that situation, the employees are not able to pay the repayment of the principal and interest to the home loan. Okay, that is why the government take these situations. And as far as my personal opinion, whatever may be regarding this, okay, you just avail that facilities. Okay, that is in the inflation situation. In the inflation situations, depositing money is worse than getting loans. Okay, you just get the money from whatever else, whatever the opportunities for getting the money, that opportunity should be utilized. That is that makes you better in your financial positions rather than depositing your money. Okay, therefore, as far as my personal opinion concerned, I always trying to get money from the financial institutions and invest something in a different investment alternatives. During this period also, I enjoyed the moratorium facilities for my 3 home loans. Okay. However, I have the capacity to pay that repayment of the principal and interest. I utilized that facility. Okay. I think this makes my financial positions better.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, sir. Another one more question, sir.
Yes, sir.
Professor Dr. N. Saktivel from Government Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. His question
Okay,
is,
sir.
what will be the taxation scenario in post-COVID period, sir?
I think there is no greater changes in the present taxation system. Okay, it is a purely a temporary one. Okay, definitely we cope up this situation in short future. Okay, there is a 1 or 2 years we definitely there is a find medicines to the COVID-19, and the present tax system cannot be changed in future. Okay, only because of the COVID we can't change everything. Okay, for spending that COVID-19, for spending towards facing the COVID-19 situations, only we imposed some taxation. And the government now ready to cut their expenses. Okay, here we can't curtail any, or we can't cut the any tax and other levies. Against that, the government they reduces their expenses. They reduces their expenses. If the government there is, instead of increasing the tax rates, it is better to reduces their government expenses. Today itself, the government of Tamil Nadu initiated so many expenditure reforms and cut their future expenses up to 50%. And there is no future vacancies are created, and no conferences and seminars, and no working lunch and working dinner for government employees and other things. Okay, that is a better way to make up these situations, I think. Okay, this is a permanent tax system that cannot be changed easily. Here, here and there, we can that is we can make some slide changes. The total tax scenario cannot be changed, and at the same time, the government revenue is reduced. The government revenue is reduced. To make up that revenue, the government in the other end, they are trying to reduces their expenses, and ultimately it affects the economic conditions of the country. Okay, for the country like India, we are spending more on the infrastructure development. Now that expenses are postponed to 1 or 2 years. That's all.
Okay, sir. Another question, sir, raised by
Yes.
Professor Sarda. Which slab is more beneficial for taxpayers, whether old one or new one, sir?
Old one, I think that is a GST. I think this question is related to GST, I think.
Slab for taxpayers, yes.
Income tax.
Yes.
Income tax.
Yes.
Income tax.
Income
Salary
tax.
So they have two different things. They can follow
Slabs.
either the one, or for the next assessment, the assessment year, we can follow, or so the other one, You have shown only
Yes,
the
yes.
other one. Old one. You have not shown the old one.
Yes, yes, yes.
You have started from that is 5%, 7.5% like.
Yes, 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 yes. Yes,
Previously,
yes, yes.
it is up to 5 lakh rupees. There is a 10% and 20% up to 10 lakh. So even the
Yes,
government
yes.
has
As per my
allowed people to
calculation.
follow.
Yes, yes. As per my calculations, while introducing that tax system, I personally calculate which one is best. As per my calculations, if you have a home loan interest, then you go with the old one.
Yes, correct.
If you have a home loan interest, you just go with the old one. If otherwise, you can go with the new one. Okay, because the home loan in the new system, there is no privileges on home loan.
Savings.
Yes, therefore, yes. That makes better in the old system. Okay,
Yes.
as far as my concerns, I have a home loan. Therefore, I opted the old one.
Yes. If you have savings, more savings, regular savings on that, already that you started saving, like that
Yes.
is rather PF or anything else, whatever they do, you don't get any benefit for the savings. If you go for the old, there is a new one.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
For
sir.
the old one, yeah.
I think in
Savings,
the
if
next,
you have more. Savings, if
I
you
think-
have more, the compulsory savings are there. In that case, you can go for the old one.
yes, sir.
You
Yes,
don't
yes,
require to save. Like me, I don't require to
Ah.
save anything in my life. Like I have retired
Ah.
already. I don't require to go for savings. So I can go for the new one. That would be better.
Yes, sir. Yes. And I heard one important news regarding this. The government is in a idea to eradicate the old one from the
Okay.
next year onwards. But now
Oh.
situation is entirely changed through this COVID-19. Maybe the old may be continued in a couple of years also.
Correct.
Okay, so thank you so much for your deep explanations for the question raised by the participants, sir.
Thank you for yes, thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity given me. I take this opportunity to learn something while because of preparations and seeing the slide and other things. I learned something. Okay. However, this is a learning process. Through this, I also learned something. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks to the Dean sir and other heads of the various departments under the School of Business Studies of Kalasalingam University. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Let me request our Dean sir to give your concluding remarks, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramesh Mandi. It's
Yes,
really, I feel very happy and I have immense pleasure and great honor that is to thank our that is Dr. Selva Kumar for having given a wonderful explanation for all the questions, whatever they've raised, participants, and the insight there is insight and informative rather sessions we had during the year. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Narvash ma'am,
Sir?
I'll close it.
Okay, sir. We are so honored and privileged to have with you today, sir. Thank you so much, sir. That was indeed motivating and extremely informative session, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the participants who are always supporting for us.
Ramesh Mandi sir.
Sir?
Afternoon session யார் ஹோஸ்ட் பண்றது?
Vanitha madam, sir.
அவங்க அந்த இவங்கள சொன்ன அந்த கிருத்திகா தேவியா அவங்க ரிமோட் வில்லேஜ் அவங்களால முடியலையா, அதாவது நெட் இது சரியா இல்லையா, பிரேக் ஆகும்.
We shall proceed.
அதனால நீங்க ராம்குமாரை கொஞ்சம் ஹோஸ்ட் பண்ணிடுங்க.
ஓகே சார். ஓகே பண்ணிடுறேன்.
லிங்க் பண்ணிட்டு நினைக்கிறேன். கொஞ்சம் அதை மட்டும் கொஞ்சம் ஹெல்ப் பண்ணுங்க. ஓகேங்களா?
ஓகே. இல்ல என்னோடதுல இருந்தே ஹோஸ்ட் பண்ணிடலாம் சார். லிங்க் நான் ஷேர் பண்ணி நானும் ராம்குமார் பண்ணிடுறேன் சார்.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.